The spirituality of forgiveness, the truth. To have something as spiritual is to have it mean nothing. Spirituality is a word that is nonsensical, which is to mean it doesn't mean anything, it makes no sense. Now, before you get angry at me and you're up in arms, I want to explain myself to you to where spirituality came from, how it evolved, and what it actually means for different people. Forgiveness is a word which most people don't understand, and when you have it described as a word that is nonsensical, it makes it even more unclear for more people. So what I want to delve into in this video is I want to make spirituality and forgiveness delineate what they actually mean, and so it makes more sense to you, it's more clear to you. Now, when something is more clear in your mind, you're able to practice it better, you're able to implement the things that you want. You make very specific delineations about it. And I want to explain to you what intelligence is. Remember that intelligence is your ability to make more and more distinctions about something, more delineations about something. The Eskimo has a higher intelligence when it comes to snow or surviving in snow because they've created about 21 different words for snow. Someone who's an avid bird watcher, who's a professional bird watcher, has many different names they call a particular bird. What you and I would say, hey, look, it's a black bird, they would say, hey, it's a black nose-tailed cockatoo, or whatever the case is, right? So they have a higher intelligence about birds because they make more and more delineations about it. Someone who is very good at technology can make a separation between an AC wire and a male cable and a female cable. Nothing having to do with gender, having to do with technology. Wide lens, wide focal lens, an open aperture, a closed aperture, a manual focus, an automatic focus. Whatever the case is, they have more delineations about that particular thing because their intelligence about that thing is higher than for the most of us. So the reason I want you to pay attention to this video is if you have you ever had a problem with forgiving somebody, or if you have someone right now who you can't seem to forgive, or you have someone right now or something right now which you can't seem to you have a resentment towards, I'm going to help you let go of that completely by teaching you, showing you what forgiveness is, and showing you what the spirituality of forgiveness is. Now, I like to say that I divide these training videos so that you're more able to appreciate it. To appreciate something is to grok, is to understand something. So it doesn't matter what I say if you don't understand it, right? So I like to divide it into parts where it's more appreciable by you. You're better able for you to learn it. So I divide it into the training, and I divide the training into 3 parts. My agenda is 3 parts. Number 1 in the training is what is spirituality, what it looks like. Number 2, what is forgiveness, what it looks like. What is the definition of it, what delineations you need to make so that you have a higher emotional intelligence and quote-unquote spiritual intelligence, so to speak. And number 3, an example of how you can put it into practice, put forgiveness into practice, and I think this will make very, very good sense, and you'll have a better understanding of how you can practice it into your life. So number 1, what is spirituality? Number 2, what is forgiveness? Number 3, how you can practice it into your life, what it actually looks like. And then the next part is my call to action to you. What steps? I have 3 steps for you that you need to do so that you can put forgiveness, the spirituality of forgiveness, into your life. First, I want to go over who I am. I am Ron John. I am a relationships consultant here in Las Vegas. If you're in town, hit me up. I own the #1 Tantra therapy in Las Vegas, or in the world actually. And I am the head trainer at Great Relationships University. I want to first before I go over the training, I want to show you my sponsor, BlockFi. BlockFi is think of it like a savings account, an app on your phone which you could store your any currency that you have, your dollars, and your Bitcoin. And you can buy Bitcoin or you could exchange Bitcoin into any currency, to dollar, for example. And more incredibly, you can get a loan against your crypto, your Bitcoin or any other cryptocurrency that you have. You can get a loan against it so that you don't have to spend your Bitcoin, because it's the most valuable and amazing asset currently to own. You don't have to spend it, you just borrow against it, and it's a non-taxable event because, as we all know, the interest you make, the money you make from the growth of Bitcoin is taxable, depending on where you are. They just came out with a credit card which gives you 1.5% cash back in Bitcoin. Now that is incredible, and they give you $250 based on how much you spend when you get started with the credit card, when you get approved. If you want to apply for the credit card, go to the link in the caption I'll provide it below this video. Let's begin with the training. What is spirituality? Spirituality now is a word which is put into when something cannot be defined metaphysically. It cannot be defined, therefore it is quote-unquote spiritual. For example, if you want to grow in many ways which you can't define how, why, when, where, in what ways, you just say spiritual growth. What is spiritual growth? Anything, really. My Bixby just turns on randomly. Okay. She thinks I said Bixby. So spirituality is a word given to anything which you cannot explain metaphysically. You can't explain spiritual growth. It's just growth. What is the metrics? For example, in business, we like to say that what are the key indicators that you have created success? Well, when it comes to spirituality, since it has no definition, what is your indicator? What is something that indicates that you have spiritual growth? Something that has no definition cannot be defined and cannot be indicated. So it's a word. Where did spirituality come from? Spirituality came from the Catholics when they say the Spirit, the Holy Spirit, it is an image of their deity in which you should strive to become. So they refer to it as the Holy Spirit. And then over time, it has evolved to anything which describes something which cannot be explained, something that is not scientific or metaphysic. Number 2, what is forgiveness? Now, before I go over what forgiveness is, I want to show you that what is the correlation, what is the connection between spirituality and forgiveness. In the title on this video, I said spirituality of forgiveness, and why that is not useful to you. So, number 2, forgiveness, what it is. Forgiveness is when you pardon something. Forgiveness is not something you provide somebody. I want you to think about this. Forgiveness is something you give to yourself. You give it psychologically to yourself. Why is that the case? Why is it that people imagine that to forgive someone, because it's actually the words themselves, to give someone, to forgive someone, the word give it appears to be you're providing someone something, but to forgive actually is to forego something. You give it to yourself. I want you to change the way you think. The old way of thinking, the old way you thought about forgiveness is that something you provide somebody. I give you forgiveness. Now, the actual way you forgive someone is you forego it and you give it to yourself. You give yourself this foregoing. To forego something is to let it go. So, let me give you an example. Somebody could, for example, have done something that you just resent. And whether or not they know that they've done something to you, but you hate them for it, you cannot forgive them for it, whether or not they know nor care if you hate it or you've been hurt by it. Now, I'm not saying it that they mean to do it, they just perhaps didn't recognize it. that they've hurt you or that they've betrayed you, that they made you feel resentment for them. And 5 years has gone by. They're living their life thinking that imagining that you guys are the best of friends, and here you are resenting them and they're not knowing it. And actually, the suffering that you're going through is of your own doing. Now, I want to show you how you can get over that. But I want you to change your paradigm of forgiveness. It's not something you give someone, it's something you give yourself. To forego something and you give it to yourself, that is what forgiveness is. It makes no sense to suffer needlessly when someone has moved on completely, never even recognizing that they needed your forgiveness. Never even recognizing that you resent them. Because if they recognize it, perhaps they would ask for your forgiveness. So it makes absolutely no sense for you to resent someone, for you not to forgive someone, for you to suffer the resentment when that person has completely moved on, is probably unaware of it. So, number one, what is spirituality? Number two, what is forgiveness? What is the connection between those two? Well, if you define something as something undefinable, it makes it more, or rather, less clear to what it is. So I want you to just think of forgiveness as something you provide for yourself and deny spirituality. Spirituality is a definition you give something which you can't define, and it's anti-intelligence. It is anti-intelligence in a way that it's not something you can delineate or define. Unless and until you can define it specifically, then you can use the word. But if you can't define it specifically, which no one can because it doesn't mean anything, then don't use the word, because it just makes something, the spirituality of forgiveness is to say that the nonsensical, non-meaning of forgiveness. Now, what does it look like? Number three, what does it look like to forgive someone? Well, let me give you an example which is to the extreme. So let's imagine that someone, your best friend, did something so heinous to you as to betray you. Let's say your best friend slept with your beloved, and your beloved has betrayed you, and your best friend has betrayed you, and you feel you hate them and you can't possibly forgive them. This is an unforgivable act, and you resent them to hell. When you forego this and you give this forgiveness to yourself, you give yourself the foregoing, you think to yourself, well, what was the reason actually that they slept together? Well, forget about myself here for a little bit. What about them? What was it? What is their side of things? Well, either your friend was malicious, but I can almost guarantee you that they didn't become your best friend. You were best friends before he even or she even met your beloved, and you were best friends before that. And I guarantee you that you didn't become friends. They didn't become best friends with you with the intent to sleep with your beloved. Perhaps it was just evolutionarily the evolutionary primal desire for something that has caused it, and they may or may not have had control of it, or whatever the case is, whatever the specific position is of that person. You find that out, and then you think to yourself, that you were best friends before they even met your partner, and they were genuine. You were genuine friends. You were valuable to each other. You liked and loved each other as friends, as best of friends. And you think, well, is this someone who is either malicious? Did they mean to do it? Did they mean to betray you? Do they plan to betray you in the future? Or is it something that you can adjust your relationship with, and that they're genuinely apologetic for it, and perhaps it's a one-time mistake? Perhaps they're more opportunistic than loyal. So you think that to yourself, and you decide for yourself, what is my risk management here? Is it worth it for me to continue a relationship with this person? Perhaps not in such a significant manner, but in a manner in which that's doable, that's enjoyable for all parties involved. And then you think to your beloved, did they intend to sleep with your best friend, or was it a one-time thing, or was it a genuine mistake? What was the cause? Was it because of you? Was it because of her? Was it because of the other person? What was the reason that it occurred? And perhaps it's something that's completely forgivable. It's not something that they maliciously intended to do, to betray you. Perhaps you need to discover what it is the nature of human beings, that men and women perhaps require variety. As I talked about in the book Relationships 101, which you can get on Amazon or Barnes & Noble. Perhaps men and women require variety, and perhaps a portion of her month, a couple of days in her month, which is she's an estrus and she just required someone who is not familiar, and her brain drugged her so that she can no longer control certain things about her physical aspect. And perhaps your friend, just like any person, requires variety as well. And our brains, our biology has made us in this way. I want you to think about something. To understand all is to forgive all. Have you heard about that before? To understand all is to forgive all is to mean that things that you understand, you're able to forgive. The more you understand something, the more you're able to forgive it. If you understand the nature of men and women, that your girlfriend or your best friend or your boyfriend did not mean to betray you, did not look at the outset to build a relationship so that they can betray you. That is their biological imperative to require variety, to be attracted, to have desire for something. And perhaps they didn't mean to do it, and the opportunity arose, and you need to question yourself whether this person is either more opportunistic than loyal to what they're promised to you, or if it's worth it for you, risk management to an expectation management, to arrange the relationship or rearrange and revisit the arrangement, and if it's something worthwhile for you to continue in a significant manner. So, before I go over the call to action to you, I want to point you out to a great resource that you need to check out. Number one is if you go to Amazon and type in Relationships 101 by Ron John, Ronejohn, you'll find an amazing book on relationships and how relationships have come to be. Number two resource is greatrelationshipsyou.com. That's 21 hours of relationship skills training, video on-demand training on relationship skills, social dynamics, psychology, enlightenment, communication, and how to manage your personal and professional relationships. It's an amazing, amazing course. And the number three resource I want you to check out is BlockFi, our sponsor for today. Their credit card is incredibly amazing. You can apply for it and get $250 of free money, and you get 1.5% cash back in Bitcoin, the most amazing asset to be had, more important asset to be had. So here's my call to action for you on this video. Number one, I want you to see for yourself who are the people and things you resent. Who are the people in your life that you resent? Maybe perhaps you could write that. Number two, so I want you to forgive yourself. I want you to forego that trespass, that betrayal, or whatever you're hurt by, and then give yourself this foregoing. Give yourself this forgiveness and say you are suffering needlessly. And perhaps you even want to communicate with them, hey, this thing happened, and I just like you to know that I've forgiven you and I've suffered needlessly about it, and I just want to communicate with you. I want to thank you for our relationship and thank you for the lessons that I've learned, or whatever the case is, if you'd like. And number three is I want you to risk manage. I want you to adjust the relationship and see for yourself if it's a relationship worth having, or if it's a relationship worth adjusting and having in a less significant or perhaps even a more significant manner. So what did you learn today? You learned what spirituality is. It's a nonsensical word. It's a word defined to anything which you cannot delineate. Therefore, it's a useless word. Number two is forgiveness. Forgiveness is something you give yourself, not something you provide somebody else. And number three, I showed you how a great example of a heinous crime that's probably unforgivable, which you could easily forgive. Leave me a comment below. Share with me what you liked about this video. Share with me your thoughts. What are your thoughts about forgiveness? What are your thoughts about spirituality? Tell me your opinion. I'd love to hear it. And if you haven't already, share this video with other people that might enjoy it and might find a lot of value in it. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my channel. I do a video every day. And I'll see you on the next video. Bye.